In the narrow, sun-baked lanes of a small village near the Hungarian-Romanian border, the scent of woodsmoke hung in the air, mixing with the faint aroma of wildflowers. It was a village where tradition ran deep, older than even the cracked stone walls that lined its alleys. In this place, a girl's path was often decided for her before she even learned to speak. Sofiya was 13. Bright-eyed, with ink-black hair that fell in gentle waves down her back, she had a quiet fire in her. She loved to draw on scraps of paper, her fingers often smudged with charcoal, her dreams traced in delicate lines. Dreams of learning, of cities beyond the hills, of a future that didn't end at a kitchen hearth. But tradition had already marked her destiny. Her parents had accepted a marriage proposal from a much older man, a cousin from another village, nearly 30, with 3 horses, 2 vans, and a reputation for toughness. To them it wasn't cruelty. It was custom. It was security. Sofiya's protests were dismissed as childish rebellion. Her cries were met with silence. She stopped eating. Then she stopped drawing. Word of Sofiya's impending wedding reached a local social worker, Maria, who had been quietly working with Roma families to ensure the rights of children were upheld. Maria knew time was short. She contacted a lawyer she trusted, a woman named Aniko Deras, known for her fearless courtroom demeanor and for going where others wouldn't. Aniko had seen cases like this before. She knew how fragile the line between tradition and human rights could be. And she knew that Sofiya's voice, no matter how brave, wouldn't be enough on its own. Within a day, Aniko arrived in the village, dressed not in a city-slick suit but in jeans and a long coat. She didn't bring cameras, just documents, determination, and empathy. The elders were suspicious, the parents defensive. But Aniko didn't storm in with accusations. She listened. She shared stories of other girls, of new laws, of rights that didn't erase identity but protected dignity. Then she spoke to Sofiya. The girl sat on a bench, hands in her lap, eyes wary. "You don't have to do this," Aniko told her gently. "No one will stop it," Sofiya whispered. "It's just the way." "It was the way," Aniko said. "But now you have me." What followed was a whirlwind of legal motions. Aniko filed an emergency injunction with the local family court to delay the marriage. She brought in child psychologists, experts, and even leaders from progressive Roma communities who spoke against underage marriage. She cited European child protection laws and argued passionately that culture could never justify the silencing of a child's will. The hearing was tense. In the courtroom, Sofiya sat silently beside Aniko, her small hands clenched, her eyes wide. The opposing counsel argued for tradition. Aniko argued for the future. "She is a child," she said, her voice echoing through the room. "And children are not currency. Children are not promises. They are not bargaining chips between families. They are human beings with dreams, with fears, with rights." The judge ruled in favor of Sofiya. The marriage was blocked. After the ruling, Sofiya wept, not from fear but from relief. Her drawings returned. So did her appetite. Aniko didn't promise her a perfect life, but she promised her a choice. Months later, Sofiya was enrolled in a regional school with a scholarship. She wrote letters to Aniko, always with small sketches in the margins. Letters that spoke of algebra tests and her favorite teacher, of books she loved, and of a future she was finally allowed to imagine. And in her first letter, she ended with this line: "Thank you for hearing me when no one else did." The small house where Sofiya had once hidden her sketchbooks was now almost unrecognizable. Ivy curled around the windows and new paint brightened the door, a door she had walked through for the last time at 13, carrying nothing but a notebook, a change of clothes, and a silent hope that freedom wouldn't betray her. Now 23, Sofiya Dinu stood before it again, dressed in a smart blazer and carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers. Not for herself. For the woman waiting just behind the iron gate. She was taller now, poised, her hair pulled back in a neat bun, but her eyes still burned with that same quiet fire. Her degree from the University of Bucharest was tucked neatly inside her briefcase, alongside her first official business card. Sofiya Dinu, Legal Intern, Child Advocacy Division. Inside the garden, Maria, the social worker who had made that first desperate call, embraced her tightly, tears in her eyes. Sofiya had returned not to boast, but to give back. She had been assigned her first case as an intern, and it was personal, a girl from a nearby village facing a similar fate. 13 years old. Promised to a man twice her age. A mirror of the girl Sofiya had once been. She drove to meet the girl with Aniko. Aniko Daras was older now. Her once black hair silver at the roots. Her hands were weathered from decades of flipping through legal briefs and holding hands in courtrooms. But when Sofiya entered her car, she smiled like no time had passed. "You kept your promise," Aniko said, eyes gleaming. "I had to," Sofiya replied. "You gave me a voice. Now it's my turn." Together they arrived at the village. Sofiya sat with the girl and told her what no one else had. "You are not a burden. You are not for sale. You are not alone." The girl, wide-eyed, clutched Sofiya's hand. "Will you stay with me?" she asked. "As long as you need," Sofiya whispered. That evening, Sofiya stood before a local court, her voice steady, her presence defiant against silence. She quoted not only laws and treaties, but her own life, her own past, her own truth. When the judge ruled in their favor, Sofiya walked out of the courthouse into the dusklight. The girl clutched her drawing, of a small bird with open wings. Sofiya smiled. The cycle had been broken again. And somewhere in the distance, in a world still full of injustice and old customs, a new kind of tradition was being born, where Roma girls were no longer hidden behind doors or silenced at altars, but standing in courtrooms, classrooms, and everywhere they chose to be. Because one lawyer had said no. Because one girl had believed her. And because freedom, once tasted, is never forgotten. Sofiya's journey didn't end with one courtroom victory. After winning the case for the 13-year-old girl named Lila, her story began to ripple across Romania's social services. Journalists picked it up, not just because of the law she upheld, but because of who she was. A Roma woman who had once been a child bride to be herself, now fighting the very chains that nearly bound her. She was invited to speak at a European Child Rights Summit in Vienna. Standing on stage, facing rows of ministers, educators, and activists, Sofiya spoke not as a victim, not as a legal professional alone, but as living proof of what belief, law, and compassion could build together. "My people are not broken," she told the audience. "But our girls are born into silence. We are taught that endurance is virtue, that obedience is love. I was one of them. Until someone broke the silence with law. Now I break it with voice." Her speech made headlines. But not all reactions were positive. Some in her old community saw her as a traitor. Others, especially young girls and a growing number of progressive Roma parents, saw her as hope. She received hundreds of letters, some handwritten by girls barely old enough to write. One read, "Dear Sofiya, my uncle says you are trouble. My mother says you are brave. I think you are both." Sofiya pinned that one to her office wall. It wasn't always victories. One winter, Sofiya lost a case where a girl had already been married illegally before the courts could intervene. The law was too slow. The girl too far. The family too protected. Sofiya drove to the village, even though the case was closed. She brought warm clothes, books, and sat with the girl for an afternoon. No cameras, no legal pads. Just presence. When asked why, Sofiya answered, "Sometimes the law loses, but people still need to win. Even if it's just for one day." One late spring evening, Sofiya sat in her small apartment, now in Cluj, writing a letter she had been meaning to write for years. "Dear Aniko, I used to think freedom was something someone gave you. But now I know, freedom is something you wake up and choose every day, even when it hurts, even when no one sees. Thank you for choosing it for me when I was too young to know it existed. I'm becoming the lawyer I needed as a girl. But you were the woman I needed first. With love, Sofiya." She never posted it. Instead, she gave it to Aniko in person when the older woman retired. Aniko cried silently as she read it, then handed her the old court photo. Sofiya at 13, holding Anikoa's hand in the courtroom. On the back she had written, "She who was silenced now speaks for thousands." By the time Sofiya was 30, her advocacy had helped pass a law strengthening protections against child marriage across Romania. She was awarded a National Medal of Merit. But the honor that meant the most to her came from a place with no spotlight, a rural town where a new school for Roma girls was built with EU funding. The school, painted in soft blues and whites, bore a small silver plaque at the entrance. The Sofiya Dinu School for Girls. Where silence ends and futures begin. She stood in front of it one quiet afternoon, watching a group of girls laugh in the courtyard, chalk in their hands, math books on their laps, freedom in their footsteps. Sofiya closed her eyes and remembered the small bench at 13. And she whispered, "We made it."